All right, guys, welcome to the show. So today we have more bad news for the big guy, Donald Trump. Things keep getting worse and worse for him in his various court cases. Michael Cohen, his former fixer, has now flipped on him. He spoke at Trump's fraud trial. It's actually not the trial anymore. It's like they're just determining what the penalty is going to be, how much he's going to have to pay in a fine. So I'll tell you what Cohen said. Then we'll also get to Vivek Ramaswamy sat down with Alex Jones. Wow. And they went in on Sean Hannity, so I'll play that clip for you. That's pretty interesting. Then we have Trump gave a rally, and man, he looks like he's going through a mental decline of his own, because he's going to butcher the name of the Turkish president. And this guy's been in power for like ever, so to not know the Turkish president's name if you're the former president is absurd. He also has a sweaty mental breakdown, and he sounds like a kid who's high in his dorm room at college. That's fun. And we'll also get to Hillary Clinton was interrupted at some event. This protester was yelling, and they had a really interesting back and forth that we'll dive into. And then later on in the show, we have Andy Beshear, the Kentucky Democratic governor, going toe-to-toe in a debate with his Republican counterpart, Daniel Cameron. And man, Beshear runs circles around him. So a really interesting clip to show you there as well. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into it. And by the way, guys, you know the shameless plugs. Everybody hook a brother up with did I say shameless subs? I meant to say shameless plug. But hook me up with a sub. That's a shameless sub pitch. Helps me out tremendously. Helps the channel out tremendously. Costs you absolutely nothing. You can also click that bell icon to get a notification every time a video drops. We're trying to keep growing the channel. Anyway, all right, let's go ahead and dive into it, y'all. So Kyle Griffin here was following what was going on with Michael Cohen at Trump's fraud case. And Cohen let it all hang out, man. He had a lot to say against his former boss. So let's start at the bottom here. Michael Cohen said Trump would come up with his own net worth estimations, and it was up to him and ex-Trump org CFO Alan Weisselberg to make the numbers work. Quote, I was asked to increase the total assets based upon a number that he arbitrarily elected. Wow. He continues, Michael Cohen, quote, my responsibility, along with Alan Weisselberg predominantly, was to reverse engineer the various different asset classes and increase those assets to achieve a number Mr. Trump asked us for. That is wild. And then finally we get here. Michael Cohen says Trump directed him and Alan Weisselberg to greatly inflate assets. Quote, he would look at the total assets and say, I'm actually not worth $4.5 billion. I'm really worth more like $6 billion. He would ask Alan and I to return with the desired goal. So in other words, this is verification that he was doing what the court was accusing him of doing all along, what the prosecutor was accusing him of doing all along, where he would just say what he wanted to be worth, and then they would try to find a way to finagle the numbers to make it look like that. Kyle Griffin goes on to point out here, Michael Cohen testifies that Trump's three oldest children, Don Jr., Ivanka, and Eric, assisted with his financial statements by giving information about projects that they were involved with. Go watch the previous segments that I did on this fraud case, because there's a bunch of really interesting things in there. Like, he's such an egregious liar, Trump is. He claimed that his apartment in New York is 30,000 square feet. It's not. It's 11,000 square feet. There was this big issue around Mar-a-Lago. Trump people were going after the judge because the judge pointed out that Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million, and Trump's people were like, see, this is how you know this is a witch hunt and fake news. It's not worth $18 million. He's devaluing it massively. But what they weren't telling you was the $18 million number came from Trump and his family, because they said Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million when they were trying to pay lower taxes. So on the one hand, they'd say it's worth like next to nothing when it comes time to pay taxes. On the other hand, when they're bragging about the property, Trump had said it was worth $1.5 billion at one point in time, $1 billion another time. The actual amount it's worth is a high of $75 million. And They lied in so many different ways. They made it seem like, oh, it would sell for $1 billion or $1.5 billion. No, it would sell for much less than that because it's also what's called a restricted property. So you're not allowed to sell the property and then they make it into a residential home. It has to remain a club, which devalues it a lot. Also, like 30% of the sale has to go to like conservation efforts in Florida. This was all set up when Trump got the property to begin with. Like, it's just one example of many examples of shameless, relentless lies. He would undervalue to pay lower taxes, overvalue when he's trying to hawk his properties, or when he's trying to get good loan terms, favorable terms from a bank. And so he defrauded the banks, he defrauded the insurance companies, he did tax fraud. All this is now coming back to bite him in the ass. Now, Michael Cohen was Trump's fixer. Namely, he's the guy who would do all of Trump's dirty work for him behind the scenes. Famously, he was involved with the Stormy Daniels thing. There was the other, what the hell is that other girl's? Karen McDougal. There was another Karen McDougal scandal, another person that Trump was cheating on Melania with. He was involved with fixing that scandal. And so this guy knows where all the bodies are buried. And Trump always makes the mistake of stabbing people in the back who know all of his deepest, darkest, dirtiest secrets. And now it's coming back to destroy Trump. Now, Michael Cohen was supposed to testify like a week ago, but he had some medical thing and he didn't go. And people were like, oh my God, did Trump get to Cohen? Did he like convince him, I'll pay you X amount of money to stay out or whatever? He actually did have a medical issue. So now now Michael Cohen did talk against Trump in the trial. And look, my guess, hear me now, quote me later, my guess is this. They want Trump to pay a $250 million fine and he's going to lose his business licenses in New York. My guess is he will pay $100 million or more as a fine, because this is devastating. He's already liable for fraud. Now it's just a matter of how big is the fine going to be. I'm going to guess $100 million or more, based on this testimony, based on what others have said, based on how brazen the lies are. And by the way, Letitia James, to give her massive credit, every single nook and cranny of a lie, she dotted every I and crossed every T and found every single detail, all the nuance and the way the scheme worked. She had it all. There was a big report she released with all this information. We went through a lot of it on the show here in previous segments. She did her job, man. And so, homie's in real trouble. With Michael Cohen explaining all this stuff, he was pretending, he was bluffing the other day, like, we're not really worried about what he has to say. Well, you are, but even if you weren't, you should be, because he's really, really lighting your whole business on fire here. And God bless him for it. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.